yardening, everybody. It's the end of November here in Zone 5, Wisconsin, and at our house we just had the first snow of the season that actually stuck around a little bit, but we still have some vegetables growing outside, some of these nice cold hardy vegetables. So I'm going to show you what we still have growing and one thing that we did to extend the lives of some of those vegetables. Let's take a look at our yard and space. Well, first of all, we have these beautiful purple Brussels sprouts. Take a look at what we've got going on in here. Let me pull one of these off. These are absolutely fantastic looking. They're not the biggest, but remember, these are the Brussels sprouts that didn't develop last year, that grew back, and now we're going to be able to harvest some Brussels sprouts off of these. These have had plenty of that nice cold weather to sweeten them up, so these could be harvested at any time. And while our Brussels sprouts didn't get all that big in general this year, we also have some more traditional green Brussels sprouts here growing. They still developed, and they're still going strong here at the end of November. Now we also have some kohlrabi out here as well. You know, kohlrabi is a really wonderful brassica in terms of being cold hardy. You can see it still looks really nice. Oh, look at this. We've got a looper that is still alive, pretty much frozen on here. Get rid of that, but this is still out here. Now this is going to come inside. We're going to overwinter this, and the reason we're overwintering it is we want to see the same results that we had with our 7-headed kohlrabi earlier this year. And we also still have kale growing out here, as well as this really cool plant. This is our kaleette. It's our only kaleette, the only one that we grew this season. But if you look inside here, you can almost see what look to be Brussels sprouts, and that's because the kaleette is a kind of like a mixture of the two. Now the Brussels sprouts that would form here aren't actually Brussels sprouts. You can see they're just loose. So it's not like that's a big part of the harvest. But what we are harvesting off here are these leaves, and they're called kaleettes. They taste like kale. They're an absolutely fantastic plant. Now everything is kind of drooping down right now, but that's just because of that cold. It's going to warm up to the 40s or 50s over the next couple of days, I think, and this will pop right back up. But as such, these are still a really nice tasting leaf. And you can see there's no damage on these whatsoever. These are fantastic. Something else I think is so cool about these cold weather plants, you can see everything else here, all of our eggplant, our old tomatoes, cucumbers, all completely dead. And then there's this burst of color from these brassicas. Now, before I show you what we created to try to protect our vegetables for at least a few extra weeks as we head into winter, I want to show you some of what we've harvested over the past week before this snow. As you can probably tell from the coat I'm wearing right now, those warm temperatures seem like a long lost memory. It's going to get down to about 23 degrees Fahrenheit tonight, and so I want to get these carrots out of the ground before the ground freezes. Now, frost isn't going to hurt them. In fact, it might make them a little sweeter, but we've already had a gentle frost. But getting them out of frozen ground, that's a whole different picture. Now, we've actually already harvested some of our carrots out of here, so I don't really know what we have left in here for size. Not bad. Some little small carrots. This is a shade garden here that we have these growing in, so not a ton of sun, but the ones that we're growing in here are the Danvers half-longs, and we planted them here. This is kind of a late season planting or later season planting, and we have been harvesting these throughout the season. Yeah, this is much easier to harvest these right now. Those are beautiful, rather than waiting for that ground to get rock hard. Yeah, I would say we have a couple tasty meals that we're going to get out of this. Well, that was a quick and enjoyable harvest. And again, we got some carrots in here with some nice size. So I'm going to get these cleaned up and inside. Well, tonight's going to be 23 degrees, and I'm pretty sure there's no way this cauliflower is going to survive out here if we leave it out too much longer. It's beautiful cheddar cauliflower. So I'm going to go ahead and get this harvested right now. If you take a look at it in the sun, it looks even more beautiful. I also want to get this really nice broccoli head. I gotta say, this is a real late succession planting, and it just came through nicely. That is just wonderful. And this was the succession planting beets that we put in here. And so, I mean, 23 degrees, we don't want them to freeze in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these pulled out of here and see just how well they did. That's some nice size there. We'll take these in and eat them for sure. You know, with the temperatures headed the way they are and the cool streak coming, I don't think it's likely that they're going to get any bigger anyway. Besides, That's a nice size, so we're gonna have some great eating out of these. You know what? That is a delightful and colorful harvest. And I think we need this cabbage to come in as well. You know what? That balled up really nicely. We got a couple different varieties of cabbage in here. And some of them haven't really formed the biggest ball. But this one, that one's perfect. So we're gonna get this one out of here too, right now. Remember, we planted all of this. I've got chard in here still. We planted all this after our potato harvest, our Magic Molly purple potato harvest. So I am going to bring in some of that beautiful chard from over there and from our green stalk as well. You can see the cold impacting this chard. I mean, once the warm weather comes, it'll spark right back up, but I want to get some of this beautiful chard while it's still nice and crisp. Look at those leaves. Oh, I absolutely love our rainbow chard. I love the taste, I love the smell, I love everything about this vegetable. Now currently I'm sitting in a mini greenhouse of sorts, one that we created to try to extend the growing season from some of our plants. Now, one of our commenters suggested that we try our best to let some of these plants that we planted late in the fall try to go to maturity as long as they could. And so what we did was, well, we built a couple of shelters for them very easily. Now, on the day I recorded the build, I actually think it was probably the windiest day of the year. But basically what we wanted to do was to take advantage of the trellising that we already had in place from last year's hoop house, and then the trellising that we have in place from our long raised beds. Now, those long raised beds of ours that have the 4-foot trellising behind them, they're 12 feet long. And what we did was we found some food safe plastic that we could go ahead and put over top to create that kind of greenhouse effect. And that process was very simple. I took some furring strips to hold down the front and the back side of those and just screwed them in. Now granted, it would be a lot easier for us to take them up if we didn't have to screw them in, but with all the wind that we've been getting and everything else, we weren't going to be removing them that often. Now we do water about once every week to make sure everything stays as nice as possible, as long as possible. And the primary purpose behind this isn't to keep the temperature so much warmer, because really when it's 20 degrees out, and we've had plenty of those days, it's not like that temperature is going to stay all that warm with a 3 or 4 mil plastic. However, it does keep the frost off of these plants. So let's take a look at what's still growing inside our modified greenhouses. Now for this modified hoop house, what I did was very simple. I took some of the PVC that we had from last year. This is Schedule 40 PVC. It's a little bit thicker, 3/4 inch, and underneath here we have some rebar. This is basically, there you go, you can see the rebar underneath to keep it in place. This is basically what we did for our hoop house last year. And I took some of this food safe plastic and I created what looks like a Conestoga wagon of sorts. You can see the furring strips on both sides. Now this is a 2x6 raised bed where we've already harvested the broccoli, but you can see in here we've got florets growing still. They look fantastic. Florets everywhere. Remember, this is a secondary harvest. You can see where we've already removed the bigger heads. And so we've still got this growing really nicely. Now all I've done to keep this as free from the weather as possible is to wrap it around a little bit and clip it on with one of these binder clips. And that's it. That's our Conestoga wagon version. And here are our other 2 beds. You can see plenty of wind blowing around here for sure, but let's see what's inside and still growing. Now it's definitely another windy day out here. But if we creep into the side here, you can see a little snow's come in, but not a lot. Take a look at this. This is our yellow cauliflower. That's that cheese cauliflower they call it. I'm gonna have to pull this one out soon, I can tell. And look at this, a beautiful head of broccoli. It's almost like nothing ever touched this. Now I'm not going to unscrew this right now, but if you look closely, you can also see there's some kohlrabi growing in here as well. You can hear the wind flapping. Let's come over to our other raised bed here, and we're seeing similar results right here at the edge. Again, I know these are cold hardy, but this is protecting them from that extra frost, and I think really giving them a little bit more time. What's this right down in here? I didn't even notice it. We've got, this is some of the white cauliflower growing. Oh, that's really outstanding. to see, again, late November in Zone 5. So I'll call this a $10 fix, but this $10 was well spent to come out here and get this plastic over top. It worked well. We're multiple weeks in. We've gotten snow. Everything that we wanted to keep is still holding on inside of here.